What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. Alright, so far we have done the 2 other starter decks, and of course, you know, we couldn't be a complete set if we didn't do the last one. Alrighty, if you don't already know what this third deck is, it's the cute stall deck. So I think this deck is pretty decent. It's not anything too crazy like people were looking at the cool deck or the passion deck being a bit mid-range. Well, this is a pretty cute late game deck that just really prolongs the game as long as it can. You're just going to be healing, you know, getting to at least 10 play points because that's what this deck is going to do. But it hasn't really been talked about too much, so we're going to be explaining it in this video. But of course, let's look at the pros and cons of it. So for the pros, we have decent control, draw, and removal. So starting off with the decent control, so of course, we're going to be trying to control the board as best as we can with the removal as our last point, but also having cards on our field that are going to be wards, and when we have those cards that have ward on our field, they're going to be doing some other fanfare effects. They're going to be like, okay, well, we're going to either be drawing, or we're going to be doing something like that to give something a buff up in any way. It's going to be pretty nice. Alright, and so then we have draw. So I believe this deck, out of all the starter decks, does draw the most. Like, unlike the cool deck, you're going to be playing cards from your deck to your field. Well, on the other hand, you're being playing cards, and then, you know, you add cards from your deck to your hand. And then we have removal. So this would not be a good stall deck at all if we didn't have, like, the best removal options for this deck. So I think the removal in this deck is pretty strong. Alright, and then we have the cons. So we have no real win cons, and then we have evolves. Alright, so no real win cons is really, there's no definite card that's going to really push us towards the winning of the game. We're just going to be bleeding our opponent out of resources. That's what's really going to be happening as we're going to be stalling the game out. They're going to do us X amount of damage, and we're going to try to heal that much damage back as best as possible, and that's what we're really going for in this deck. Alright, and then we have evolve. So most of the followers that you are going to be playing, you can naturally play them and they just don't do anything. So they're just going to be vanillas unless you evolve them. So you have to make sure you have to commit those extra play points in order to evolve them. So that's really a bigger side of the cons there too, is that you're going to need a whole lot of play points to really get the most out of your effects. Alright, so let's talk about the combo here. So we have the cute combo, we have the Kyoko Igarashi with the Uzuki Shimura, and we have the Miho Kohinata. So starting off with the Kyoko Igarashi, so she's a forward cost 4/4. She has ward. When she comes into play, you select an enemy follower on the field and give you a -1/-1 for every cute follower on your field. You can also use one of your lesson cards to select an enemy follower on the field and give it another -1/-1. Activate only once per turn. And then next up we have the Uzuki Shimura, so she's a 7 cost 4/4. When she comes into play, select up to 1 cute follower that costs 4 or less, and up to 1 cute follower that costs 2 or less in your cemetery, and summon them, and you give them +1/+1. You can also use one lesson card to give your leader +3 defense. You can activate only once per turn. And then next up we have Miho Kanata, so she's a 2 cost 2/2, and when she comes into play, you look at the top card of your deck. If it's a cute card, you may reveal it and add it to your hand. While there's at least 3 cute followers on your field, this follower has Rush. Alright, so when we put all of this together, we're going to be using the Uzuki Shimura ability to bring out the Kyoko and the Miho. So with the Kyoko ability, once she's played, she's going to be a 5/5 with ward. And then when she comes into play, you're going to be -3 a follower on the field. And if you use one lesson card, you're going to be -4. While you play the Miho, which will be a 3/3 with Rush since you have those 3 cute followers. And you look at the top card for your cute cards, which we should have since our deck is going to be filled with them. Alright, so let's talk about our searchers. So we have Kana Imai, we have Momoka Sakurai, we have Mirie Hakesawa, and we have Shiki Ikanose. So I want to give a little disclaimer, I'm sorry if I mispronounce some of those names. These names are kind of hard to say. But starting with the first card, we have Kana Imai. So on Evolve, you look at the top card of your deck, you may reveal it and add it to your hand. If you revealed a cute card, give your leader +2 defense. Alright, so like I said before, of course, we're going to be trying our best to stall out the game as best as we can, so we want to fill up our deck with as many cue cards as we can. So getting a cue card off the top and then also healing too would be pretty nice, especially if we're going up against an aggro type deck. And then next up we have Momoko Sakurai, so she's a 3/3, so on Evolve you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, you may reveal a cue card from among them and add it to your hand, put the rest of them on your deck in any order. So it's going to be pretty nice that we have a choice here at looking at the top 3. Of course, all of our cards are going to be cute cards. That's the goal, is to have every card in our deck being cute. So looking at the top 3 gives us a multi-choice ability to just see what we might need. And then next up, we have Mirie Haikasawa. So she's a 3 cost 4/3. You look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put one of them to the top of your deck, and then you bury the rest. While there are at least 5 Idolmaster Cinderella girls in your cemetery, this follower has Rush. So if you want to pair any of these other abilities up pretty nicely, so we can use the Kana and Mai if we have the extra play points to go ahead and look at that top card being a cute card to heal 2. If you really have the full synergy there, which sometimes can work, and since you're burying 2 of the top 3 cards that you will be using for Mirie, you can probably potentially give her a rush if you're just trading units. And then lastly, we have Shiki Ikonose. So she's a 5-cost 2/5. When she comes into play, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may put one of them into your EX area and then bury the rest. You can also engage her to discard a card and select the enemy following field and deal it 5 damage. Alright, so it's pretty nice that we're able to just go ahead and have a searcher card and removal added into it. So this is a pretty decent card to be going into on 5. We're not really going to be looking at the evolve card because the evolve card really doesn't really help for this deck in terms of stall. Because if we get a big card and we deal damage to ourselves equal to the number of the card's cost, that's going to really retract what we're doing in terms of stall. Alright, so let's talk about that removal. So one thing we're also going to need along with stalling and healing is removal. Alright, so going down the list here, we have Miho Kohinata, we have Winter Night Prayer, we have Akiha Ikebukuro, and we have Nini Kurihara. Alright, so looking at the first card, we have Miho Kohinata, so she's a 3/3, but on evolve, you select the enemy following the field and deal it 2 damage. If there are at least 5 Q cards in your cemetery, deal 3 damage instead. So correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Miho Kohinata is one of the unevolved cards where you can get rid of one of your lesson cards and you can give that follower +1/+1. Pretty sure you have to pay at least 1 play point for that. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But when you evolve her, she'll be a 4/4, so you can swing into another follower while dealing 3 damage as long as you have at least 5 Q cards in your cemetery. Alright, and moving on, we have Winter Night Prayer, so it's a 4-cost quick spell, and you select the enemy follower in the field and banish it, and if there's a Q follower on your field, you give your leader +3 defense. So this is a pretty clutch card, especially if you're going to stop opponent from using last words on certain cards, which would be pretty nice because you also get to stop their last words and you get to heal 3 as long as you have a Q follower on the field. Alright, and next up we have Akiha Ikebukuro. So on evolve, you discard a Q card and you select the enemy following the field and deal it 3 damage and draw a card. Alright, so it's going to be pretty nice that we're going to also be dealing damage to a follower and drawing a card, but I think on the discard part, it's pretty nice that we can hit that 5 Q cards in the cemetery and we can use that for other cards for later, of course. Alright, and lastly, we have Nene Kurihara. So she's a 5-cost 3/4, but you can evolve her for 1. She has ward, but when she comes into play, you select the enemy following the field and you deal it 3 damage. So the one trend I am seeing in the terms of removal cards here is that you're only going to be doing 3 damage to any follower, which kind of does not feel that very good, especially if your opponent establishes a card that's a 5/5. So you're like, okay, well, I deal 3 damage, so where am I going to get the rest of the 2? Well, you're going to have to commit another card to it, so it does kind of feel bad in that aspect. Alright, so let's look at the stall help. So these are going to be cards that are going to be helping us prolong the game as long as possible. So those cards are Noriko Shina, we have Akare Tsujino, we have Chika Yokihama, and then we have Akiha Ikebukuro. Just starting with the first card, Noriko Shina. So she's a 2-cost 2/3. And if there are at least 3 Idolmaster Cinderella girls on your field, give this follower +1 attack and rush. She also has strike ability, so when she swings, you give your leader +2 defense. Alright, so I think this card is really good for this deck just because you can just spend her for 2. Your opponent's going to have to answer it. If they don't, then you're going to be healing 2, which does feel bad. And then you're going to also be swinging for 2 damage as well. Alright, and next up we have Akari Tsujino. So she's a 4-cost 4/5. She has ward, but when she comes into play, you give your leader +3 defense. If you have 10 max play points, deal 3 damage to each enemy leader. And whenever this follower takes at least 5 damage, increase your maximum play points by 1. Alright, so it's pretty nice that this card already just screams dragon, so Dragoncraft players rejoice. But on top of that, it is pretty nice for the cute deck, just because you can play her. She's a 4-cost ward, you're going to be healing 3. And then as long as she's warded and she takes the 5 damage, you'll be increasing your maximum play points by 1. But unfortunately, if she's hard removed, I don't think she gets that ability. And then next up, we have Chika Yokohama, so she's a 1-cost 2/2. And when she comes into play, fanfare, if there are at least 5 Q cards in your cemetery, give this follower +1/+2 and ward. So if you're seeing the pattern here, we're going to be playing a whole bunch of wards and a whole bunch of heals as best as we can in the deck, just so we can prolong the game as much as we can. We can get to those 10 play points. So hitting that ward is very nice. So she's going to be a 3/4, which is nice, but with this next card, she'll end up being a 3/5. And then lastly, we have the next card, we have Akiha Ikebukuro, so she's a 3-cost 3/3. We can evolve for 1, but when she comes into play, select another Q follower on your field and you give +1 defense. So pairing this card up is going to be pretty nice, especially with the Chika Yokohama. So she's going to be a 3/5 with ward once you play the Akiha or Ikebukuro, and then you can evolve her for 1 to discard a Q card and then deal 3 damage to something and then draw a card. Alright, so let's talk about our singular boss monster in the deck. I think this is probably the best removal, or like the best boss monster we're going to be having in this deck. Alright, so we have Kyoko Igarashi, so she's a 7 cost 6/7. She has ward and you can evolve her for 1, but when she comes into play you give your leader +3 defense and you draw 2 cards. While in the evolved form, she has ward, and on evolve you select up to 1 enemy follower on the field and engage it or refresh it, and during your turn this follower doesn't take damage. Alright, so it's one thing to heal in one card, but it's another thing to heal and also draw 2 as well. So we're going to be healing 3 and drawing 2 with the Kyoko Igarashi, and then we're going to evolve her, and then we're going to select the enemy follower to either engage it or refresh it. So if there's a follower on the field that we really want to take care of and we don't want it swinging at us, we can go ahead and engage it so we can swing at it. Or if we have a follower that has ward on the enemy's field, we can go ahead and refresh it so it doesn't have ward and can start swinging in for face. Alright, and let's go ahead and get into the grade of the deck. So if you already know how the Inverse Academy works here, we're going to be looking at a sample deck list. Unfortunately, I didn't create it this time. I'm going to give credits to 50 cards. I'll put a link down to their website below so you can check out their website, but they have a pretty decent cute deck. Alright, so here is an example of the cute deck. It's pretty nice. So there are a couple cards in here that I didn't talk about that I do want to talk about. So one of them is the Miku Maikawa. So this is a 2 cost 3/1. You can give her Storm by paying 1 and using 1 lesson to go ahead and swing for 3 damage, and then selecting another follower on the field and dealing it 2 damage, which is just pretty nice. And then we also didn't talk about the Nene Evolve. So the Nene Evolve is pretty good because this is a pretty good way to cheat out the Igarashi if you don't want to spend 7. You can establish 2 wards onto the field by on evolve paying the extra 3, and then selecting Q follow in your cemetery to summon it. And it doesn't specify a cost, so you can go ahead and summon the Igarashi if you want to go ahead and heal 3 and draw 2, and then you have another ward onto the field, but you'll have to wait to obviously evolve her if you need to. And then lastly, we did not talk about the Shiki Yunosuke Evolve, which I really don't like in this deck because we're going to be dealing damage to our face to go ahead and making any card that we put into our EX area 0. So it's nice that we're going to be using any of like the 3 costs that we want to put into the EX area, but when we get into the higher cost cards and making them 0, that's when it gets a little scary. But yeah, I'll be putting a deck code down in the description below, so if you want to check that out, go ahead. And also I want to thank again for 50 cards. I'll put a link down to their website if you want to check it out. Alright, so what we learned about the deck so far is that this deck is pretty decent. It doesn't do anything too crazy. You're going to be healing a whole bunch and then drawing as many cards as you can through the early game, and trying to answer your opponent's board as best as you can with the removal, because you're only going to be doing 3 damage on most of your removal. There's nothing that does 5 damage unless you use the rune spell that uses a quick and you can deal 5 damage, but you don't get the draw card because you don't have any passion cards in your deck. Alright, if you were personally to ask me the question of where I would place this, I think this is a very good starter deck. So if you are very new to Shadowverse Evolve, I think this is the perfect deck for you because you're able to heal, draw cards, and understand how the game's really played. Now, when it comes to the bigger cards, you'll be like, okay, I'm more interested in leveling up my deck, and you'll look at something else. If you really get into it, then there you go. But I think this is a perfect starting deck if you really don't know anything about Shadowverse Evolve in general. Now, if I were to give this deck a grade, I would give it a big C-. Now, this deck does not really do too much. You do draw cards, you do heal, you do stall, but when you get into your late game, it's like not many of your cards really do that much to affect your opponent. Yeah, we have cards that say, if you have 10 maximum play points, you can deal 3 damage to the enemy leader, but that's not really a way to really close out the game. Well, alrighty soldiers, that is the end of the video. I want to go ahead and apologize to you guys for taking so long to bring out this video. I was just a bit busy this week doing some other things. I had pre-recorded some videos to see if I could get through the week, but unfortunately I missed Thursday. But I'm glad I was able to bring you guys the cute breakdown as best as possible. But alright soldiers, make sure you're safe in whatever you do tonight and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah, TRINN. Just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do.